Get in here! Wait a minute. What is this? Don't talk.
My father-in-law, Grantley, suddenly dragged me into the closet. I had grabbed my phone in a hurry, and when I looked at the screen, it was 2 a.m.
What is going on? Just be quiet.
Why am I being shoved into a place like this with him? I have absolutely no idea what's happening.
Hey! Grantley!
The closet is barely illuminated by the light from my phone. He looked at me and put his finger to his lips. Shut up. He had always seemed a bit aloof and reserved since the first time we met. So, I never really knew what he was thinking. Since Cecilia passed away, it seemed to have gotten worse. I had no choice but to follow his instructions silently. Look outside. Outside? He whispered to me. Following his words, I peeked outside through the gap in the closet. It was dark and hard to see. How long do we have to stay here? About 8 minutes had passed since we got into the closet. Grantley tapped my shoulder and pointed outside. What I saw was unbelievable. Who is that? I couldn't help but speak out. Looking closely, I saw something glimmering in their hand, faintly illuminated by the light.
Run!
My body moved instinctively at his words. I burst out of the closet. I ran out of the room as fast as I could. I called the police right after that. I never imagined something like this would happen. I'm Harlow, a 35-year-old ordinary office worker. 2 years ago, I married my current husband, Keaton.
What? Marriage? Isn't it about time?
Well, maybe, but...
There's a party coming up. How about it?
A party? I'm not really up for it. Before I married Keaton, I worked as a sales assistant. I didn't have any big goals. I just went back and forth between work and home every day.
It's this Friday, so what do you think?
If you insist, I'll go. The following Friday, I reluctantly went to the party. That's where I met Keaton. Tonight might be your lucky night. Bernadine, who was sitting next to me, whispered that to me.
Lucky? Well, you go to these parties every week. So, Harlow, who do you like?
Me? I just came to make up the numbers.
Don't say that. We're here, so let's enjoy ourselves.
Yeah. I guess you're right. I hadn't had a drink in a while, so I got a bit drunk. And then Keaton spoke to me.
Harlow, what do you usually do in your free time?
Well, to be honest, I don't really have any hobbies. I mostly just go back and forth between work and home every day. It's embarrassing.
That's a shame. You should enjoy life.
No one had ever said that to me before. We exchanged contact information after that. We continued to see each other after the party. Keaton taught me a lot of things I didn't know, being so focused on work all the time.
It's been 6 months since we met.
Yeah, it has.
So, how about we start dating?
Yeah. I found myself answering naturally. After that, our relationship progressed smoothly. Then one day, when I visited his house, he had a serious look on his face. Actually, there's something I haven't told you.
Something you haven't told me?
Yes. According to Keaton, he had lost his previous wife a few years ago. Until now, having little experience with men, I was thrown off by this fact. So, that's how it is. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner.
It's okay. Thanks for telling me.
Keaton must have sensed the myriad of emotions I was feeling. He was considerate, telling me I didn't have to accept it if I didn't want to. If you're uncomfortable, it's okay. I didn't want to hear any more. Even though Keaton cared about me, the fact remained unchanged. I started to wonder. Is it really okay to keep dating Keaton? Time, however, waits for no one. Days turned into weeks, and before I knew it, nearly a year had passed.
What? Why didn't you tell me?
It turned out he had a son with his late wife. The boy was living with his parents. I'm sorry.
It was hard to bring up. But still,
I truly apologize. I was overwhelmed with distrust towards Keaton. If you're okay with it, would you like to meet him?
what?
Honestly, I didn't want to meet the boy, but it wasn't his fault. When I first met Keaton's son, Normand, he was just 4 years old. Normand didn't show any hostility towards me, nor was he particularly friendly.
What is this feeling?
Although we met, we couldn't have a proper conversation. On the way back, I realized what felt off. Normand was almost indifferent towards his father, Keaton. It felt like they were strangers.
What's wrong?
Oh, nothing.
I was just wondering if Normand is always like that. Yeah, I guess so.
Even Keaton's response felt odd to me.
Has it been a while since you last saw him? I've been busy with work.
Maybe Keaton didn't fully understand Normand either. It hadn't been long since his real mother passed away, which could also be a factor. We met a few more times after that, but Normand never warmed up to me. He probably was still wary of me.
How can I get him to like me? He's probably just nervous. He'll warm up to you eventually.
He seemed optimistic, but I felt differently. After all, Normand wasn't even that warm towards Keaton. This made me more determined. Even though Normand was living with Keaton's parents, I felt it was unfair to him.
Can we meet Normand again? Sure, I'll let my parents know. Thank you.
A week later.
I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? I'm sure Normand wanted to see you too. Right?
Yeah. Normand still looked a bit sullen.
Are you okay?
I asked gently. At first, he didn't respond, but I kept talking to him. Eventually, he started to open up.
Aren't you two getting along? Really? You think so?
Hey, let's go play over there.
Go ahead, but I need to talk to you first. Can you go ahead and wait for us? Okay.
Normand then went to his room.
I'm sorry. No problem. So, when are you two getting married? Married? Weren't you planning to talk about that today?
I looked at Keaton. He took a deep breath, seemingly gathering his courage.
Will you marry me? Yes.
Wow. Congratulations. At first, I was hesitant about getting married because his previous wife had passed away and he had a child. However, now I no longer think about those things. Keaton was delighted to hear my response. This marks the beginning of a new life. I had high hopes for this new chapter, but there was a problem. That problem was Grantley's presence.
Come on. It's a joyous occasion, so Grantley, show some more enthusiasm. Are you really okay with this? Huh?
You should have something else to say. Sorry about Grantley, he's not very good at expressing himself. But I'm sure he's happy for you, so don't worry.
Okay.
Later, I would come to realize that Grantley's words were not directed at me. And I would face even bigger problems. Then, Keaton and I went to introduce him to my parents. At first, I thought they wouldn't approve of me marrying a man with a child, but they didn't show any displeasure at all.
Finally, you're getting married. Now we can be at ease. Take good care of our daughter.
Yes. I will make her happy. With my parents' blessing, I felt excitement for the future. Then, we got married. Initially, I hoped it would be just me, Keaton, and Normand living together.
About that, what if we live here? In this house? Is that really okay? It's fine.
I glanced at Grantley, but he neither approved nor disapproved. However, I understood what Cecilia was saying. Seeing Norman's attitude towards Keaton made me uneasy.
Besides, both of you are working, right? If you live here, we can watch over Normand. That might actually be better. Let's do that. Yeah, I agree.
And so, we moved into my in-laws' house. To my delight, they even renovated the house for us.
From today, please take care of us. Likewise. Take it easy today. Thank you.
We were allowed to use the room that Keaton used to use. It had already been renovated and was spacious.
It's so much bigger than it used to be. I can't believe they did all this for us. Really. We have to show our appreciation.
While putting away my things in the closet, I found a box in the back.
What could this be?
Knowing it was wrong, I couldn't help but be curious about what was inside. When I opened the box, I found photos and accessories of Keaton's late wife, Fem.
What are you doing? Ah.
For a moment, time seemed to stop.
Sorry. But this is.
You found it. I kept it for Normand. I just couldn't throw it away. I understood what he meant. But seeing it made me feel helpless. I thought I had come to terms with it, but deep down, it still bothered me.
I'll take care of it later.
Okay. Then, 2 weeks after we started living with my in-laws, something happened. Grantley, who had only exchanged minimal greetings with me, started a conversation.
Are you getting used to living here? Yes, thanks to everyone. We're very comfortable. I see.
Grantley seemed like he had more to say, but walked away after saying that.
What was that about?
Then, Cecilia spoke to me from behind. I'm sorry. He's always been a bit awkward. But it's not that he dislikes you. Sigh. Even though Cecilia's words were meant to reassure me, I couldn't help but feel that he might actually dislike me. But that wasn't the only issue. One Sunday afternoon, it happened.
Sorry. I got called into work. I have to go for a bit. Oh, really? Well, I also have some documents I need to pick up from the office. Maybe I can go with you? Well, okay.
Then, suddenly,
Don't do it. What?
I was stunned by Grantley's sudden outburst. I couldn't even think of how to respond.
It'd be sad for Norman to be left alone. Yes, you're right. Sorry.
I got scolded out of the blue. I understood he was thinking of Normand, but I didn't expect him to be so harsh about it.
I don't know what's going on, but I'm going. See you. Hey, wait a minute.
Keaton rushed out, almost as if he was escaping. Even though Normand was at home, it was my first time being alone with Grantley, and I felt nervous. At that time, I didn't yet realize his true intentions. After that, Grantley started to encourage me more and more to spend time with Normand. Grantley seems to be harsher with me lately.
That's nothing new. Maybe you're just overthinking it?
No, he definitely hates me.
You're being a pain.
I didn't miss him muttering that. What did you just say?
Nothing.
You definitely said I was a pain.
I didn't.
This kind of exchange continued for a while. Eventually, fed up with it, Keaton left, claiming he had work to do. What is going on? The kind and gentle Keaton from before our marriage was no longer there. He started to insult me, and his behavior became more and more tyrannical. I hadn't done anything wrong, but it was clear his love for me had faded.
Is Keaton late again today? Yes, it seems so. Maybe he's out having fun. That's not true. How can you be sure?
I couldn't be certain if he was having fun or not, but Keaton kept saying it was an important time at work, coming home late almost every night. This had been going on for a while now.
Sorry, but I have to stay at the office tonight. Again? I can't help it.
I know, but you haven't really talked with Normand lately, have you?
That's not true. Sorry, I have to get back to work. Take care of things there.
Days like this would leave anyone sighing. And that wasn't my only worry.
Keaton still isn't coming home regularly?
No.
Maybe you should have a serious talk with him?
You're right.
You might regret it later.
What do you mean by that? But Grantley didn't answer. Was he telling me to think it through myself? In the end, without getting any more details, Grantley just went to sleep. Then, 3 days later, something happened. My husband came home early for once, but he seemed a bit rushed. Why are you in such a hurry?
Oh! Just came to grab some clothes. And by the way, I forgot to mention I'll be on a business trip starting tomorrow.
A business trip? You never told me that.
Didn't I? Well, that's the situation, so take care.
By the way, how long will you be away?
3 days and 2 nights.
But that's... The day after tomorrow is Norman's birthday. This means we can't even celebrate it.
I know work trips are unavoidable, but the day after tomorrow is Norman's birthday. Oh, seems so.
He responded as if it didn't concern him.
You need to explain this to him yourself then.
At that moment, Normand came over to us.
Normand, listen. I have to work the day after tomorrow, so we can't celebrate your birthday together. Do you understand?
He didn't say anything.
So, is there anything you want? You can ask for anything you like.
Even when I spoke, Normand kept staring at Keaton without saying a word.
Staying silent won't help us understand.
Keaton was clearly getting frustrated with Normand's behavior.
Hey! Say something.
Then, Keaton raised his arm as if to strike Normand.
What are you doing? This is discipline. No, it isn't. This is just abuse. I don't have time for this. He's your son. He is.
Keaton left without finishing his sentence. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
All I could do was apologize.
Isn't Keaton back?
He was here just a moment ago.
I see.
And he's going on a business trip on Norman's birthday.
A business trip, huh?
Now Grantley butted in from the side.
Is it really a business trip? Grantley, please. It could be something else. He hasn't been coming home much lately. Don't worry about him.
Yes. I couldn't understand why Grantley was so hostile, but something even worse had happened. Where's Cecilia?
I don't know.
You don't know? We later found out that she had been unwell and had been going to the hospital. She had been going on weekdays, so we hadn't noticed.
I'll take care of the housework, so Cecilia, please take it easy. But Harlow, you'll have to give up your job too, and it will be a burden. I'm more worried about you.
Her presence was significant to me. I balanced work, childcare, and caring for Cecilia's health. After that, Cecilia, who had always been so lively and energetic, suddenly seemed to age.
Cecilia, please rest. I'll handle everything. It's okay. Moving around a bit makes me feel better. Your health is more important right now. I see. I'm sorry.
I managed because Grantley mainly took care of her. He still treated me coldly. Before I knew it, it had been almost 2 years since we got married. Cecilia had a heart condition, and it had gotten quite severe. She didn't want to be hospitalized because she wanted to spend as much time with her family as possible, I later learned. She didn't want to trouble us, so she kept her suffering to herself. That was so like Cecilia. And then, the unthinkable happened. That morning was particularly cold. Where's Cecilia?
She's probably still sleeping.
She usually woke up earlier than anyone.
I'll go check on her.
When I reached the bedroom, Cecilia seemed to be asleep. But as I got closer, I realized she wasn't breathing. I rushed to report to Grantley.
Why are you in such a hurry?
Cecilia!
What?
Grantley stood up and immediately headed to the bedroom.
Cecilia! Cecilia!
He looked back at me and shook his head.
No way!
I quickly contacted Keaton, who was staying at the office, to come home. I also contacted the hospital, but her death was confirmed as soon as we arrived. That was about 30 minutes later.
Mom?
Unfortunately, she's...
No way!
I wanted to believe it was a lie too. Cecilia's death was treated as a seizure. Without time to grieve, preparations for her funeral began. Even at a time like this, you have work?
I can't help it.
When I tried to stop Keaton from going to work, something fell out of his bag. Something fell. When I picked it up, it was a bank book. And the name written on it was not Keaton's.
Thanks. See you. Wait, what is this? It's my friend's.
He escaped before I could ask more. But I couldn't dwell on it, as the funeral was the next day.
Sorry for making you help with so many things. It's okay. More importantly, is Grantley okay? Yeah, but what about Keaton? He should be here soon. Seriously, that kid.
Considering Grantley's feelings, it must be exhausting to worry about his son even at a time like this.
Sorry, I'm late. You're not late, but just barely. You really should have helped more. I said I'm sorry.
The funeral itself went without issue, but Keaton seemed distracted the whole time. Every day since then has felt more tiring. On this day, I was so sleepy it was hard to stay conscious. And then, I fell asleep without realizing it.
Get in here! Hey, what's going on? Don't talk!
Grantley suddenly pulled me into the closet. I had grabbed my phone in the rush and saw it was 2 a.m.
What is this? Just be quiet.
I had no idea why I was being shoved into a closet with Grantley. It made no sense at all. Grantley. The closet was barely lit by the light from my phone. Grantley looked at me and put his finger to his lips. Be quiet? I had so many questions, but I had no choice but to follow his instruction.
Look outside.
Outside? He whispered to me. I peeked outside through the closet gap as he said. It was dark and hard to see. How long are we supposed to stay here? About 8 minutes had passed since we got into the closet. Grantley tapped my shoulder and pointed outside. Then I saw an unbelievable sight. Who is that? I couldn't help but whisper. In the faint light, I saw something shining in their hand.
Run!
My body moved instinctively at those words. I jumped out of the closet and dashed out of the room. Then I immediately called the police.
Please, come quickly. There's someone with a knife in my house.
I managed to explain the situation and waited for the police to arrive.
Normand!
Calling the police wasn't enough. I had to ensure Norman's safety. I rushed to Norman's side. Harlow?
Normand! Wake up!
I grabbed Normand and immediately left the house. I was worried about Grantley, but my priority was protecting Normand. However, I couldn't just leave Grantley, who had helped us escape.
I'm going to check on Grantley, so please stay here quietly, okay?
Yeah. Before that, I called Keaton.
What? I'm busy right now. We're in big trouble here too. What? A strange woman suddenly entered our room. A woman?
Even over the phone, I could tell his voice was tense.
Do you have any idea who she might be?
No. Of course not.
All right. Just hurry and get here. Grantley's life is at stake. Hey, wait!
I hung up and headed straight to Grantley. As I approached the bedroom, it was eerily quiet. I peeked into the room and saw Grantley standing, with the strange woman sitting on the floor.
Grantley? Oh, Harlow. Is Normand okay? Yes, he's safe. That's good to hear.
And what about her?
It seems she's Keaton's mistress.
Mistress? Grantley sighed. So it has come to this. What do you mean? It seemed like a police car had arrived at our house. Can you explain what happened? Well,
let me explain,
Grantley said. What he revealed was shocking. As I had heard earlier, the woman before us was Keaton's mistress. Apparently, their relationship had started before our marriage. The mistress wanted to marry Keaton, but he chose me instead.
By the way, what's your name?
Fern.
Fern, did Keaton stay overnight at work or go on business trips to see you?
Fern slowly nodded. As I listened, I learned that Fern was a junior colleague of Keaton's at work.
How could you do this?
I questioned further.
But how did you find out about this place?
Keaton told me about it. I also took the key from him.
But when I entered the room, I heard a strange voice. What? I don't really understand, but I heard someone saying stopped.
So it wasn't just my imagination.
What do you mean?
After I helped Harlow escape, I briefly saw Kaylee's face. Who on earth was Kaylee?
No way!
Kaylee was Keaton's previous wife. I hadn't mentioned it before, but she passed away due to illness.
Yes. He neglected Mom.
Normand.
Maybe Normand resented Keaton. He probably saw him as the man who let his mother die. It must have been Kaylee's will that stopped Fern. Another shocking fact came to light from Normand's mouth. And he isn't my real dad. What? I was confused, unable to make sense of anything. Grantley, did you know?
I thought Keaton had told you. I didn't realize you didn't know. I'm sorry.
Then, we heard footsteps rushing up the stairs. What on earth happened? Everyone in the room turned to look at Keaton. What the hell? Fern came here. She took your key. Fern, you wouldn't marry me. So I thought getting rid of her would make things easier. You really messed things up. You have no right to say that. It's all your fault. And I've heard everything from Grantley and Normand. Damn it! In some ways, Fern was also a victim of his manipulations. But even so, I can't forgive her. Normand might have been in danger too. Please, take them both away. Why me? You are responsible for this mess. This has nothing to do with it. Just give it up. Go atone for the sins you've committed. If I do that, Kaylee will hate me too, right? What do you mean? Why don't you figure it out yourself? Thus, Keaton and Fern were taken away by the police. I'm really sorry.
Grantley.
If I had told you sooner, this wouldn't have happened. It's not your fault, Grantley. Can I ask you something?
anything.
What was Kaylee like? She was a kind person who put others before herself. I see.
But this was just the beginning. Keaton and Fern will get the punishment they deserve. I immediately started preparing for a divorce. I have no choice but to get a divorce. I never imagined that Normand was Fern's child.
Grantley, please don't apologize so much.
I should have been more careful when we got married.
It's not your fault, Grantley. I was the one who couldn't see clearly.
On the day I decided to marry Keaton, Grantley asked Keaton if he was sure about me, not the other way around. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know.
Yes, well, actually.
I asked Grantley to look into something that had been bothering me for a while. It was a mysterious bank book that Keaton had. There was a significant amount of money saved in it.
Got it. I'll look into it. If we confront Keaton, he'll have to talk.
Do you think it's okay?
He has no right to refuse now. Thank you.
After leaving Keaton's family home, we decided to rent a new place and start over. This is the beginning of a new life. For the sake of young Normand, I decided to work from home. The divorce was finalized and I received compensation. But it wasn't over yet. Later, when Grantley called me to Keaton's family home.
It's the money he saved up. It seems Keaton was saving it to live with that woman.
It was the bank book that Grantley had investigated for me.
But this is for Normand too.
Yes, for the child. We were able to receive the money that Keaton had saved. It was all thanks to Grantley's efforts. I later heard that Grantley had negotiated terms such as giving up custody of Normand and ignoring the affair. Even going that far.
It's okay. This is the least I can do. Thank you so much.
As for Keaton and the others, they apparently moved far away after losing all their money. If that were all, it would have been fine. But things didn't go smoothly. The violent nature of Fern, Keaton's affair partner, kept him constantly on edge.
Well, he brought it all on himself.
Life with Normand was more enjoyable than I ever imagined, and it wasn't as challenging as I had feared. I feel like his smile has grown even brighter and more frequent. As a result, our bond has deepened and become much stronger.
What do you feel like eating today?
Oh, I want to eat with Grantley.
Grantley? Okay, I'll give him a call.
Yeah. Normand has always adored Grantley since he spent a lot of time away from Keaton.
Sorry to bother you with this request out of the blue. No need to apologize. I was just at home with nothing to do. Well then, I'll bring Normand over. I'll be waiting.
In the midst of this pleasant atmosphere, a call came from him. What's up?
Well, I was just wondering how Normand is doing.
You don't need to worry. He's doing great.
Are you regretting something now?
It's not like that.
If you keep talking on the phone, your scary girlfriend might get mad at you. Cut it out!
Anyway, don't call again.
If something like that happens again, it'll be irreparable.
Keaton fell completely silent. That's that, then.
Goodbye.
Even if our future holds difficulties, I believe we can overcome them. Protecting Normand's smile. My top priority now. And I'm not alone.
Shall we go then? Yes. Normand, are you ready?
Yes. The three of us are now heading to visit the grave of his biological mother, Kaylee. Today is a perfectly clear and sunny day.
Well, I never thought I'd run into someone with just a high school education, low level, in a place like this.
I was just as surprised to reunite with Amanda 12 years after graduating high school. And of all places, on a plane as I was about to embark on a vacation. Not wanting to engage further, I gave a brief greeting and headed to my seat. The incident occurred 30 minutes after the plane took off. Nobody move. A suspicious man stood behind the flight attendant. Apparently, the plane had been hijacked. I had no choice. Luckily, I was seated on the opposite aisle from where the hijacker was, so I tried to crawl on the floor unnoticed and inch my way behind him. Huh? Seeing me crawling around on the floor, Amanda looked at me with a mixture of fear and bewilderment on her face. Her expression seemed to say not to do anything unnecessary, but now was not the time to worry about Amanda. I had to find a way out of this situation no matter what. My name is Sarah. I'm a 30-year-old Navy sailor. I'm one of the few women assigned to an escort ship, working as a communications officer. I'm not at sea all year round, but I'm often out on the ocean for training and other duties. Usually missions end peacefully, but occasionally we have to rescue stranded ships, transport supplies during disasters, warn suspicious vessels. Unsettling things do happen. Because of that, I've built up a tolerance for trouble and have grown bolder over the years. Some of my colleagues even say I could be a female ship captain in the future. As a government employee, I basically have weekends off and get extended vacations. During disasters, I have to cancel my time off, but normally it's an ordinary life. I can travel and spend my days off freely. That said, I've developed the habit of staying prepared for emergencies, so I don't really feel like traveling far. Even so, I decided to enjoy a vacation as I turned 30, planning a typical but fun trip to Hawaii. The day finally came and I boarded the plane with a mix of anticipation and nerves. Basking in that happiness, an unpleasant voice stopped me.
Well, I never thought I'd run into someone with just a high school education, low level, in a place like this.
Only one person in my life would start talking to me so rudely without even a greeting. Someone I thought had faded into distant memory. It ruined my good mood.
Hello.
Not wanting to engage further, I gave a brief greeting and headed to my seat. Hey, you.
Wait a minute.
But Amanda seemed to have more to say and followed me to my seat.
Is that any way to act when an old classmate is happy to see you again? Are you just feeling awkward because it's so clear who's winning at life? Winning? I don't feel like I've won or lost anything.
Taken aback that I talked back to her, Amanda continued with a strained expression.
I'll have you know I graduated from Harvard and work at a major law firm. I get so many clients. I'm what you'd call a popular lawyer. Want to know my salary too? Not interested. Say what you want. So stubborn. It's well over $1 million. An amount I bet you'll never see in your life with just a high school diploma.
I had no interest in what she was saying, so I avoided eye contact with Amanda and picked up an in-flight magazine to flip through. Not getting the reaction she wanted, a dissatisfied Amanda kept slinging condescending remarks.
Come to think of it, you joined the Navy, right, Sarah? Still doing that? Yes. I feel sorry for you, enlisting straight out of high school. The pay must be low and there's no chance for advancement. Why not just get married and quit? Oh wait, is there even any demand? With looks like yours.
According to Amanda, she had a fiancé who was also a college graduate working as an elite at a trading company. She looked down on me while bragging about balancing work and love, but I ignored her. A flight attendant eventually came over and told Amanda to take her seat, finally freeing me from the unpleasant exchange. She returned to her seat while making snide comments.
You're in a position to live off our tax dollars, so instead of playing around here, get back to your post and work. A dirty job perfect for those grubby clothes of yours.
I let out a sigh, but steadfastly ignored her. At last freed from Amanda, the plane soon took off. About 30 minutes after rising above the clouds, getting on course, and the fasten seatbelt sign turning off as the aircraft stabilized. I noticed some commotion in the cabin crew area, but I just figured they were dealing with an unruly passenger unfamiliar with air travel. A few minutes later, "Nobody move." The shadowy figure of a suspicious man stood behind the flight attendant. Looked to be around 40 years old. "If everyone remains seated quietly until we land, your safety is guaranteed, so please, stay as you are." Her voice trembling and eyes glistening with tears, the flight attendant relayed the hijacker's instructions to the passengers.
"We still have hours until landing and we can't even use the bathroom?"
An elderly man shouted furiously. At that moment,
"Know your place. This plane is flying somewhere else now. If even one of you makes a scene, this plane will explode."
the hijacker behind the flight attendant suddenly yelled to intimidate the passengers. The hijacker pulled out aluminum foil from his pocket, then took out a battery from his other pocket and made sparks by touching them together. I hesitated about intervening the moment the hijacker took out the foil. But I figured the hijacker must have some objective and wouldn't risk his own life by suddenly blowing up the plane. I had to act fast and get close to the hijacker to stop him before it was too late. As the passengers screamed in terror, the hijacker, just as I predicted, extinguished the small fire he had started.
"Next time, I'll start a bigger fire and blow this plane up with it. You there, the one who talked back to me, I'll light the fire right above your head."
The hijacker pointed at an oxygen tank he was carrying on his waist. It was probably a medical oxygen tank. If he were to spray highly concentrated oxygen onto an ignited object, it would undoubtedly cause an explosion big enough to blow up the entire aircraft. If they could at least land somewhere, even if there was an explosion, they might have time to evacuate before the fire spread, but depending on where he started the fire, some passengers could become casualties. I had to stop the hijacker at all costs. The hijacker's fire-starting performance had all the passengers trembling in fear, holding their breath. Looking at Amanda, even that self-centered woman seemed terrified, her face pale as she looked down. Even with her personality, she had grown up in a wealthy family. Both her parents were doctors, and she had planned to go to medical school herself, but struggled with science courses, switched to the humanities, and decided to become a lawyer instead. Because she was someone who always drew attention, information about Amanda would naturally reach my ears even if she wasn't interested. Anyway, putting her aside, if I could somehow get behind that hijacker, she might be able to restrain him. I scanned my surroundings with just her eyes and was relieved to find that her seat was in the hijacker's blind spot. Then, quietly unfastened her seatbelt and assessed the situation. The hijacker was still standing behind a flight attendant, with another attendant forced to stand behind him as a lookout. Judging from the expression on the face of the attendant acting as lookout, the hijacker was probably threatening to hurt the other attendant and passengers if any suspicious movements took place behind his back. How could I get close without causing trouble for her too? Just as I was contemplating this, a well-built man started to put the hijacker into a headlock. This was bad. Rash actions could be fatal. They mustn't provoke him.
"Ah!"
The man had burned the hijacker's foot using aluminum foil and a dry cell battery.
"You! I told you to stay put or I'll blow up this whole plane. I'll make an example of your crime right here and now. I won't detonate it right away. Not until everyone here fully regrets their own stupidity and mistakes."
With those words, the hijacker started a small fire near the emergency exit where there were no passenger seats and quickly extinguished it. Whimpers could be heard over the terrorized silence. Then children began to cry.
"Yeah, hurry up and admit your sins like that.
I had been worried the crying might irritate him, but the hijacker seemed pleased the more frightened the passengers became.
Well then, before you die, let me tell you the story of my life.
The hijacker began to recount his motive for the hijacking. I had to retrieve that oxygen tank somehow. If it was opened and exposed to even a little spark, it would be the end.
My father was an international airline pilot. That's right, he flew this very route to Australia. He was a workaholic who neglected me and my mother. I bet he was getting cozy with young flight attendants. He rarely even came home. Stayed in hotels after flights. Even when my mother was sick and suffering, he didn't come to see her. He was the worst. So I decided I would have my revenge on him.
The hijacker was lashing out indiscriminately. The passengers began to feel both fear and anger.
Even on the day my mother was on her deathbed a year ago, that bastard knew she was in critical condition but flew this route as usual. He didn't stay with her to the end. He prioritized these frivolous passengers over her. I was trying to find a way to get back at him, but then he went and got sick himself.
According to the hijacker, if leisure travelers didn't exist, his father wouldn't have flown the plane and could have been at his mother's side when she passed. But the person he most wanted revenge against was in a hospital room where he couldn't reach him. So his anger was being directed at the passengers.
That's why I'm going to tarnish his reputation right here. Excuse me, I'm a lawyer. If you want revenge against your father, why not file a lawsuit? I'll take your case pro bono as a special service. I'm on this flight for work. Please don't lump me in with the other terrible passengers.
I was surprised had the gall to make such a suggestion in this situation. Amanda was tougher than me had given her credit for.
Huh? Who the hell are you? You want me to burn you too? I'm not going to forgive that man through some simple method like that. A lawsuit would only get money. I hate selfish, stuck-up women like you the most. My father looked down on people too, thinking he was some elite.
It was a big chance that Amanda had drawn the hijacker's attention. While they were arguing, I slowly and silently pressed her body flat against the floor. Then she began crawling like a lizard.
Don't tell me you're Captain Smith's son?
But I couldn't be bothered with that now. I was trying to get closer to the hijacker from that very spot. In an instant, her chance had turned into a crisis. Amanda noticed me crawling on the floor and gave me an exasperated look.
Huh? Who are you? Seems like you know my dad. What are you, his mistress? Captain Smith doesn't have a mistress. He cared about his family more than anyone. That's easy to say. I don't know what lies he told here, but his actions didn't match. If he cared so much about family, why didn't he come home? Why did he stay at hotels, and who was he staying with?
I knew the reasons. But explanations would have to wait. I knew she had to restrain the hijacker as soon as possible. Since she couldn't approach from behind, she needed to find another route.
I won't allow you to insult him. You can use me as a hostage, so please release the other passengers. Good grief, feisty women are such a pain. What's in it for me, huh? If you want to make it out of here alive, shut your mouth.
The hijacker grabbed the senior flight attendant by the collar and slammed her to the floor. I was convinced. This hijacker wasn't serious. The moment the hijacker created an opening by talking at length, another male passenger lunged at him. I was internally frustrated that the situation had once again taken an unfavorable turn due to someone's reckless actions. It seemed this flight was full of rash amateurs. Even if this hijacker had no real intention of blowing up the plane, The fact remained that he was holding dangerous items. Even if the hijacker didn't mean to, if those were accidentally set off, they would all be obliterated. I sincerely wished they would stop provoking the hijacker any further. Sure enough, the hijacker became enraged and began grappling with the male passenger who had jumped him. If that oxygen tank was activated, it would be disastrous. There was no other choice. Thanks to their scuffle, the hijacker was completely unaware of Sarah's presence. I quickly crawled on her belly, aiming for the hijacker's back.
Huh?
Seeing me slithering around, Amanda looked surprised. Sweating nervously, my expression begged she would not to do anything else unnecessary, but I couldn't worry about that now. Yet Amanda called out to her.
Hey, what are you doing? Trying to escape on your own? And you call yourself a member of the self-defense forces protecting our country? As soon as I get back, I'm lodging a complaint with your workplace. Maybe I'll even press charges.
Her voice was getting rougher and louder, almost alerting the hijacker, so I silenced her.
Can you just be quiet? Don't get in the way.
I whispered right by Amanda's ear as she lightly twisted her arm behind her back. Letting her know that interfering would lead to pain, Amanda finally quieted down. Precious time had been wasted and I was getting more irritated when the male passenger grappling with the hijacker let out a scream.
Ouch! I'll get that lawyer from before to sue you. Everyone take pictures. It's evidence, evidence. Video would be better. Hurry!
Amanda whipped out her smartphone, looking eager to film, so I twisted her arm again to stop her. It was dangerous to carelessly excite the hijacker.
Hey, can you learn already? I said don't do anything unnecessary.
When I spoke forcefully, Amanda muttered under her breath so only I could hear, "I'll sue you too." Meanwhile, the agitated hijacker reached for the oxygen tank. You, confess your sins to everyone here.
I don't care about my life. I'm ready to do this any time.
I had to prevent him from opening that valve at all costs. She got within 6 feet of the hijacker, swiftly snatched the tank, and swung it down with all her might, aiming for the hijacker's head, and then there was a light thud. The tank was lighter than she expected, and just as she felt that oddness, the hijacker looked confused rather than collapsing. I had intended to knock the hijacker out by hitting him with the tank, but the unexpected result threw her off for a moment. However, the hijacker also seemed unable to grasp the situation right away, so in that gap, I tackled him, put him in a hold, and successfully restrained him so he couldn't move.
Is the tank empty?
The hijacker remained silent. It seemed he really hadn't intended to actually blow up the plane after all.
Please lend me a couple of ties. Rope would be even better if you have it.
The senior flight attendant immediately handed over a scarf, and a passenger offered a tie. With those, I bound the hijacker's arms and legs, sat him in a seat and secured him with the seatbelt.
Where is the plane headed? Does the captain know about this?
He knows. The plane is probably heading back to Washington Dulles International Airport unnoticed. I believe a SWAT team is being arranged by the airport. The senior flight attendant quietly informed Sarah so the hijacker wouldn't overhear. Amanda rubbed her arm that I had grabbed in an exaggerated show of pain. The moment she realized the hijacker was restrained and we were safe, she looked at me and started ranting about something.
Everyone has human rights. The way that woman acted disregarded those rights. Even if she's in the self-defense forces, it's unacceptable. She put us in danger, assaulted me, and ignored that man's human rights. I'm filing a lawsuit against her later.
The other passengers all recoiled. The passenger who had been put in a headlock and burned by the hijacker began protesting against Amanda. Hey, you're suing the wrong person. I'm the one who got burned by that guy. If anything, that woman helped us, didn't she? And if she's in the self-defense forces, that's reassuring. She's our savior. It's because of lawyers like you that evil never disappears from this world. How rude! I was just saying that woman's methods were too rough. As Amanda argued back, the passengers booed her for this and that. Hey! You say something too. When it comes down to it, Dash. Shut up! This is no time for games. Our safety still isn't guaranteed. Quietly wait for landing. The passengers, including Amanda, fell silent. The hijacker, while restrained in his seat, didn't seem to have any will to resist and sat quietly. I thought he wasn't serious because he had reacted strangely to the story about his father, and I could see a flicker of wavering emotion on his face. Also, judging from the fact that he hadn't burned the senior flight attendant, he was probably showing a bit of consideration for women. If he really intended to die with the plane, he would have injured people regardless of gender. And the way he kept starting small fires with bits of aluminum foil and immediately extinguishing them made it seem like he was being careful to avoid a major fire. I also know about Captain Smith. 3 years ago, when a mysterious fire broke out on his aircraft, he made an emergency landing near the coast. Thanks to landing in shallow waters, although half the fuselage sank, all the passengers were unharmed. The fire was put out before it spread, and our escort ship rescued that plane. His quick judgment prevented the plane from being engulfed in flames and saved the passengers and crew. He was an admirable captain. The hijacker listened with an angry expression. It was a recent incident, so he probably remembered it too. Everyone, I sincerely apologize for subjecting you to such a terrifying experience on your important travel flight. This aircraft is now returning to Washington Dulles International Airport. We judged that a long flight would be dangerous with hazardous materials on board. At Washington Dulles, we ask that you once again confirm your health and safety. Alternate flights will be arranged, so please use those. The cabin became noisy with passengers' sighs and complaints. Amanda was riled up, saying she would sue the whole airline. Everyone, we are truly sorry. We will do our utmost to serve you until arrival, so we would be grateful if you could stay with us on this flight a while longer. As the senior flight attendant politely made this request, in-flight service began. Gradually, the passengers settled down and started chatting with those in neighboring seats. I stood in front of the hijacker to keep watch over him. You're with the Maritime Self-Defense Force. Getting in my way. I serve on an escort ship. I only met Captain Smith during that incident, but I remember him communicating with his wife by radio after being rescued by the escort ship. That's right, Captain Smith always carried a portable radio so he could contact his wife anytime. So they could feel each other's presence even in an emergency. He apparently had his wife get an amateur radio license too. Since I'm in this line of work myself, I found it a very interesting story. He talked about his son too. He said when he encouraged his son to also get a radio license, his son, a high school student at the time, told him I don't have confidence I could handle communications cutting off in a worst-case scenario. Let me hear your final words face to face. He laughed sadly as he recounted it. When I shared that story, the hijacker suddenly started choking up with sobs. This may be like pouring salt on the wound, but I immediately understood why Captain Smith didn't go straight home after flights and stayed at hotels. It was because his wife was sick.
I think he was very worried about possibly bringing infectious diseases from abroad to his immunocompromised wife. We have crew members like that too.
The last few years in particular had strict regulations due to a pandemic-like outbreak of infectious disease, and everyone was on edge about infection. It overlapped with the time this hijacker's mother was bedridden. The hijacker cried even harder. What a pathetic man, despite being older than me. Hard to believe he's the son of the respectable Captain Smith. As both the cabin and hijacker calmed down, I sat in the seat next to the hijacker. But then that woman barged in again.
Hey Sarah? This was a big catch for someone low-level like you, wasn't it? No, I should say, it's precisely because you're both low-level that you understood each other and resolved it,
Having regained her composure thanks to the tranquil atmosphere in the cabin, Amanda nitpicked as if to vent her unresolved frustration. Even after being subjected to a situation like this, prioritizing satisfying her own desire for recognition over the lives of so many people in danger, even I couldn't contain my anger at that self-centeredness. I thrust the dry cell batteries I had retrieved from the hijacker in front of Amanda's eyes.
You know, these can easily ignite. Even without aluminum foil, if batteries collide, they can explode. They're not covered with insulation yet. What do you think would happen if I shook them right here?
Amanda didn't show any sign of backing down and confidently pushed back.
You think you can do that as a member of the self-defense forces? I could film it and send it to the Maritime Self-Defense Force. You might get fired and lose that part-time job-level salary. Did you seriously think I would actually do it here? Think about it a little. I'm telling you, there was that kind of risk the whole time this hijacker was rampaging. With that brain of yours, I'm amazed you can call yourself a Harvard graduate and elite lawyer. You shouldn't brag. It's disrespectful to other Harvard grads and lawyers.
Even I, who had ignored her ridiculous posturing until now, couldn't forgive this irresponsibility of not grasping the gravity of the situation.
By the way, about this oxygen tank. If it was full and mishandled, we would have been obliterated in an instant. He says it's empty, but it's doubtful he thoroughly checked it was inert by activating it. There's a possibility chemical substances are still inside. Everyone on this plane is still in mortal danger.
The cabin fell completely silent all at once. Amanda returned to her seat with an awkward expression, saying nothing. I also scolded the hijacker.
The commotion you caused isn't over yet. You will be restrained as a captive until the safety of everyone here is guaranteed, and there's no assurance you yourself will make it back alive.
When the hijacker nonchalantly said he didn't care about his own life, I became enraged, grabbed his head, and dug my nails in.
I was holding back a bit since you're older and Captain Smith's son, but no more. Get it together already.
The hijacker complained that his head hurt where I grabbed him.
You have a responsibility to make amends with your life. Even if you don't care, take proper responsibility for the sake of everyone caught up in this flight and for your parents.
The hijacker started crying again. I heard Amanda mutter under her breath, "Vulgar woman." The senior flight attendant came to inform me that we would soon prepare for landing, so I should fasten my seatbelt. But first, I stood up and headed towards Amanda. I wanted to deal a final blow so she wouldn't try to one-up me with any more worthless posturing.
I'm not going to talk to you anymore after this, but let me just say self-defense force members get travel allowances, you know. Serving on an escort ship involves a lot of overseas travel in particular, so my annual salary is higher than yours.
Amanda looked at me with an expression of disbelief.
But I graduated from Harvard, so in terms of brand value, you with your high school education.
The moment Amanda squeezed out those words in a sore loser's retort, other passengers started heckling her, "Shut up, Harvard woman." There are plenty of Harvard grad lawyers these days. I'm a Harvard-educated doctor, and other jeers flew at Amanda. An announcement played asking passengers to fasten seatbelts in preparation for landing, and the cabin quieted after being cautioned by the flight attendants. Upon landing, we immediately handed the hijacker over to the SWAT team. The SWAT team was surprised to see the hijacker so docile, but when I told them how I had subdued him, they were relieved a self-defense force member had been on board. Amanda was subjected to snide remarks from each passenger walking by. She disembarked with an air of awkwardness, looking crestfallen. It seems she didn't go to Australia after that and hurriedly returned to Boston. I intend to take the rescheduled flight to Australia as planned. After confirming Amanda's name wasn't on the passenger list for the new flight, I finally felt at ease and ready to enjoy my trip. When I returned from Australia, I received a letter of appreciation from the police. The incident was the talk of my maritime self-defense force workplace. Later, I heard that hijacker was imprisoned and Captain Smith passed away without ever meeting his son again. Just as the hijacker said he wanted revenge, he ended up disgracing his parents' honor. Online, his life story was exposed under headlines like "Pilot's Son Commits Hijacking and Flamed." He's a pitiful man who couldn't properly recognize his parents' love. Even if it was prevented, the crime of toying with people's lives is heavy. Losing the qualifications to receive the parental love he so desired and squandering the chance to understand each other is probably the worst punishment for him. I also heard some trivial follow-up stories. Apparently, Amanda's engagement was broken off due to incompatible personalities, and she's attending various matchmaking parties but has become infamous as an unreasonable person. I heard the rumors from a friend who's also seeking marriage. It even became a bit of a topic online. A video made the rounds of Amanda going on about Harvard and such, painting her as a socially inept woman despite having her life in danger during that hijacking. This has probably made her prospects for marriage even more distant. I returned to serving on the escort ship. It's not a passenger ship, so I don't have to worry about hijackings, but conversely, when we pick up radio communications from planes or ships in that kind of danger, I've started thinking about whether there are ways we can help. Putting even more effort into my work, I get teased more than ever as the next female captain. But I feel this job is worthwhile. Speaking of marriageable age, I still don't have the slightest inkling, but I've started considering having any future family of mine also get radio licenses and thinking more about marriage and family. Around that time, a coworker 3 years my junior who always comes to me for advice about everything tapped me on the shoulder.
What question do you have this time?
Sarah, I also have a radio license for work, and how about we keep in touch privately by radio too? I never imagined such a nice prospect would come my way so quickly.
I think communication is most important for both work and private life. Let's keep telling each other what we want to say from now on.
Yes! A fulfilling life, both public and private, has begun.